Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome. Chewy, good to see you.
What up, fam?
What up,
I'm
whānau?
sorry that I left you high and dry last night because
you
I
went
was
dry,
drinking
were you?
whiskey.
Yeah.
I came home and Claire was like, you've been drinking whiskey. And I was like, yes, I have.
And that was a good time? Good time had by one and all?
Yeah. You know, it's an early Christmas party for work. And just, we're a pretty small team, so we sometimes go out for dinners and that sort of thing, but this is the first time that everybody was like, should we go somewhere else? Should we keep going? Let's keep the vibe going. And so we all ended up in a Woof, because that is, in my opinion, Dunedin's best bar.
Yep.
I had the first tequila shot I have had since 2003, when I made a barefooted fire breather cry. I punched a bus and got lost in the in the gardens.
You got lost in the garden. So for people who
Yes.
don't know Dunedin, that's down by the cenotaph, down sort of in the one-way system, between the one-ways.
Oh, no, not the Queen's Gardens. The like the shelter belt.
Northeast Valley.
No, in City Rise. But there were trees. It was dark. I got lost.
Oh, well, it's good to be back. Good to have you back again. I'm just doing some research. I can't actually see what you're looking at right now. I could be going all over the place because I'm doing some research to try and find out that question that we just asked beforehand. And what I thought I'd do to try and find out when that was released is I'm looking on their Facebook page right now. On their Facebook page, they'll have a time. So if you have the tweet, then you'll see what time it's closed. And if I can find the link on the Facebook page, we'll see what time it opened. And it might end up being, we'll be able to make some accusations. What else? What's been going on? How's your week? How you feeling? You feeling good after you've recovered well?
Yes, from the old COVID thing. We actually had a COVID denier conspiracy theorist in the shop today.
Oh, do tell.
Well, we were already looking after 2 customers, and she wanted to be served straight away, and we said that you can't push in, and just to be patient, we'll be with you very shortly. And that wasn't good enough, and she says we should have more staff on, and I was like, well, finding staff at the moment is tough because of COVID, and you know, we've got to take lunch breaks and stuff like that. And she said, actually, there's no legal thing about COVID anymore, and you should have more staff. Yeah, the government restrictions of COVID, they're all gone. And I'm like, well, that has nothing to do with anything. But anyway, COVID's still around. At that point, a customer piped up and said, yeah, there's actually a resurgence at the moment. And I was like, yes, I'm glad you brought that up. I caught it a couple of weeks ago. And this person just went, oh, well, good for you. Like, and I'm like, what is going on?
Like they're basically saying, who do you think you are for catching COVID?
Maybe. I don't know. Like, there wasn't a coherent thread in whatever this person was about. But I tell you what, it involved $35. So,
all right. No, busy around here. I'm actually got the cricket on in the background as well. I'm watching the cricket while we're having a bit of a chat, and it looks like the Black Caps are going to win the first one-day against India. And I know a lot of people don't care about that, but I quite enjoy the cricket. So it's a thing. Peter,
I've been told to moderate my comments, especially around cricket, because I have some close friends that listen to the show and really like the cricket.
Right.
So, well, yay, cricket.
You're offending everybody. Peter says, why not Inchbar? Inchbar, isn't
that? Inchbar is very far away from everything. I do like Inchbar.
Not everything. Come on.
Oh, it's close to your house. I do like Inchbar. That's where I started doing comedy, and it's great because you can have 12 people in the audience and it's a sellout show. It's a cool little bar, but yes, very far away from where I was.
I'm still scrolling as I'm talking to you, and I'm back to, I've gone through about 100. I've got a bit of a theme today of scrolling through YouTube and not YouTube, sorry, Facebook pages, and I spent a whole bunch of time scrolling through David Seymour's Facebook page today.
Oh dear God!
Specifically for the show tonight. So maybe we should
do we
rip
have
into
counselling in place for that? Do you need to talk to a professional?
I am a professional, and I'll keep everybody safe because
if you turn into a libertarian,
because we read them, so you don't have to. That's how the way goes. I had one of those ridiculous moments where I was trying to go back to March of last year, and fuck me, David Seymour's page is full of a lot of crap, hundreds and hundreds, and it got to about, I don't know, January of this year, after like 12 minutes of scrolling, and then it froze and I lost it. I'm like, ugh. And that was the first time I went and Google how to insert the timeline by a date, and it told me how, and I found it much more quickly. But I still spent quite a lot of time asking around trying to find back. Now, why, might you ask, was I doing that? Well, shall we get to it, shall we? Big thanks to our $50 patrons, Kooky Nick and Alex Davis, while we're doing that. And to all of our patrons who are on board, if you're interested in supporting us and the work we do, it's patreons.com/Big Hairy News. And also, while we're here, subscribe to our daily audio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify's in there as well. We put this audio up every single day, and it is asking, it's just a way to have actually, the thing about Spotify is you can actually put the video on Spotify. Chewy. I download the video and I upload it, and it sends the video off to Spotify, but it sends the audio off to Apple, and it sends the audio off to Google as well. So
that sounds very efficient.
Yeah. So that goes up there. So if you missed it on the night before, and you're not someone like a moron like me who pays for their YouTube, so you haven't got something you can listen to in your cans very easily, headphones, then yeah, get us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts the next day. Well, no, it's not even the next day, it's midnight tonight. So if you're watching us internationally and you happen to be getting it about up at 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning, like some of our friends are, then listen to us there as well. Right, let's have a look at a news story today that came out. It's a continuation of the horrific and tragic events of the stabbing in Sandringham. Sure, you may not have known from last night because you were well liquored up, but got to be really careful, because when you say this kind of thing, people think, oh, they're making it about themselves. It's not that. But this used to be my local dairy, so I know the area really well. I lived 150 meters down the road. Well, my road was 150 meters down the road from where this was, and lived there for a few years. So I know the dairy well. This was 15 years ago, so I'm not saying I have anything to do with these people, nothing like that. But I know the area well. I know that I can visualize the spaces and places that they're talking about, and it's just horrific. It's utterly horrific. So the Prime Minister was in the Chatham Islands today. I mean, forget all the controversy about where she was and why she was, but I've never been to the Chathams. Always wanted to go. I saw a house for sale at the Chathams when I was looking through realestate.co.nz the other day, and it was like 6 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, and looked fairly reasonable. I don't know what we do over there, Chewy, but it was looked like a nice place to live. Anyway, the Prime Minister was off to the Chathams doing prime ministerial things, and she started to get some flack from one David Seymour. I was thinking today as I was writing this up, I wonder if it sticks in David Seymour's craw that he will never be able to call himself former Prime Minister David Seymour. Like, I wonder if that's something. So, like, same for the Winston Peters of this world. I wonder that they throw so much venom at the current Prime Minister. There's a part of it which is, I can never have that title. I'll never get to that position. It's never going to happen. I wonder if that's anything to do with their venom around these people. Anyway, David Seymour's come out saying to the Prime Minister that she should not have gone to the Chathams, that she should have stayed in her electorate, because her electorate is where this horrific murder happened. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern is defending her decision not to travel to her local electorate to be with the grieving families of the Sandringham community after a man managing a dairy was fatally stabbed. Ardern, speaking to media from Chatham Islands, where she was visiting for the first time, said she had directly contacted some community leaders concerning the man's death, but said she was wary of disturbing a grieving family. Also, I was thinking, too, this is one of those moments, if she had have wandered in to this thing, what would the right-wing pundits have said?
Oh, absolutely. She's politicizing politicizing.
Oh, this is
the whole work.
disgusting. Mind your business. She's using the grieving family to get a photo op. That's what they would have said. But now that she's not there, it's not okay as well. Anyway, the Prime Minister goes on, it is my local community, so I will be looking to be present there as soon as I am able to. But I'm also very aware there is a family grieving and there is an active police investigation into a homicide. And I do need to delicately balance being in the right place at the right time. Ardern rejected any suggestions her not being in Sandringham represented a government not doing enough to address crime. Because apparently she should be running down the road trying to catch these people herself. Noting that there was a time and a place when a man's family might want to engage politicians. We will continually have to do as much as we can to support our police, which we have. They are the best resource that they have ever been. Best resources. They are the best resources. So David Seymour came out saying this. ACT Party David Seymour said Ardern not choosing to be in her Mount Albert electorate where the incident took place showed, quote, a complete lack of judgment, a complete lack of judgment. Instead of dropping everything, should drop everything to be in her electorate today and making the response to retail crime a priority. She is on a plane to the Chathams, a trip she could have easily postponed. Now, you know, I kind of think that there is some validity in what Mr. Seymour's saying on some level, right? I think it's fair to ask, where should the local MP be in this kind of situation? I think it's fair to ask that question. The next question to ask is, where is any local electorate MP when a murder happens in their electorate? For example, pick one randomly. Just hang on, let me just go, boop, and I'll say, well, like for example, in 2021, in Epsom, who's the MP for Epsom?
Oh,
is it did Goldsmith win at the last one? Was it Paul Goldsmith? Did he win?
Former go-karting champion David Seymour.
Epsom homicide, 29-year-old man charged with double murder over couple's death. This murder was committed the 19th of March, 2021. So I think it's fair to ask the question, what is the local MP doing when these events happen? And do we expect our local MPs to be in their electorate when these things happen? Or if they're not, is it a complete lack of judgment? Now, I'm not going to now play kind of flippant with the murders, but I think most people would think all murders are terrible. It's a terrible thing, but a double murder seems to be worse than a murder, like just on the scale of an actual crime, not of how it impacts people or anything. So where was David Seymour on the 19th, for the week after that murder happened in his electorate? The double murder happened.
Was he right there?
Well, he have to have been, because if he wasn't right there, it would have been a complete lack of judgment, and it would have been kind of hypocritical for what he came out with and said today, and it would have been almost like he's trying to push a narrative based on hypocrisy. I mean, I'm sure that's not the case, Chewy.
Integrity.
So I went through Mr. Seymour's Facebook feed today.
Oh dear.
So you don't have to. Now this is actually a video. What I did, because I was a bit concerned that it would crash again, so I actually went to it. Then I used OBS and I recorded the screen as I was looking through it. So this is the 18th of March, 2021. This is the day before the murders, and David Seymour, as you can see, is at the Central District's Fields Day. Now this is going to kind of scroll on my behalf because I was scrolling it in video, so it'll start in a second. So let's have a look at how much time he spent in his electorate. Obviously, because if he didn't, it would be a complete lack of judgment. So the murder happened on the is it paused? Shouldn't have paused. Come on, play. Isn't that funny? Is it gonna crap out on me now?
It's broken.
It's broken. It's the broken. SIS getting into it and stopping it. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take it off this, and I'm actually just going to. This is inside my Google, so I'm just going to, because there's no sound to it, so it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to open it up directly from its file. There we go, and I'll come back again. Here we go. Here we go. So this is David Seymour's Facebook page. This is a video of it. This is not me scrolling it. This is a video. So here's the day of the murder. Where he comes out and he talks about a cocky Labour minister. That's on the 19th of March. The next day, well, this might still, but this is the 20th of March. He's talking about climate change and how terrible Labour is. And then he takes photos. He's in his electorate, 21st March, he's in his electorate, but he's taking photos with people. Then on the 22nd of March, he's talking about hosting street corners, conversations. And then on the 22nd of March, he's talking about supporting a trans Tasman bubble. On the 23rd of March, I'm going to pause that because it's a bit of a longish one. Oh, I can't pause it. It's gone anyway. On the 23rd of March, he's talking about how terrible Labour are. And then he's in Wellington, so he's not in his electorate. So by the 23rd of March, he's in Wellington. And then on the 24th of March, this is him still in Wellington, abolish the bright line test, talking about that. And then on the 25th of March, he's putting up like he's in his workout gear, putting stuff up. And then he's still in Wellington on the 25th of March. He's in the house on the 25th of March. And then on the 26th of March, I think it is. So this is within that week. He's in the South Island at the South Island Agricultural Field Days. 25th of March, actually. So he went elsewhere. He left his electorate in the week of a double homicide, a double murder. He wasn't there. He didn't stick around. And I can only wonder if anyone else considers that a complete lack of judgment. The other thing I noticed, Chewy, and I'll get your take on this, is, and I tried to have a look on his Twitter feed as well, but it wouldn't go back that far for me. I don't know if Elon's protecting alt-right sympathizers at the moment. But no public acknowledgement anywhere of sympathy. Like, you think about that. That's his Facebook page, a double murder in his electorate. And I'm not saying that he didn't talk in the press, or I'm not saying that he didn't offer condolences personally, but no public acknowledgement of what had happened in his electorate whatsoever. Nothing, not a thing. And I just thought, Now, some might say, well, that's a good thing because you don't want to play grandstand and PR to it. Others might say, I think most of us who are normal people, whatever the relationship is, for him it would be constituent, for us it would be something else, might publicly acknowledge a double murder that's happened in our electorate that we should have stayed in, because if we didn't and we left, it would be a complete lack of judgment. I found all that very interesting today, Chewy. There you go. I've been talking for 7 minutes.
It's almost like a double standard, which is very unusual out of Mr Seymour. Look, I think when we're talking about the Prime Minister and this, is you're talking about the different hats that she would wear. And I'm sorry, I don't think her going, oh, well, I'm putting on my local electorate MP hat and I'm charging into this crime scene, for lack of a better word, and I'm just going to insert myself in there. That wouldn't have been the appropriate thing, because she's still the Prime Minister. It's not like she's a backbench MP. You know, it's very, very different. And I think the other thing, I saw a comment here from Jay, the immediateness of the right wing, the New Zealand Herald, everybody has politicized this thing immediately, straight out of the gates. It's been quotes from upset people. It's been quotes from people that are heavily involved in the National Party. We won't mention that they're higher ups in the National Party or contributing members to the National Party. We're going to mention that they're part of the Dairy Owners Association or the Indian community or that sort of thing. We won't mention that at all. There's no context given. We just take one of the hats that this person has and we just let them say whatever they want. And to see phrases like, the Prime Minister has blood on her hands because of this.
Did you say that was Mr. Peters? I didn't see that comment.
No, Mr. Peters didn't say that phrase, but I have seen there's an opinion piece from the Herald, I think today or yesterday, that was the government or Jacinda Ardern has blood on her hands. And they ran that as a headline for an opinion piece for someone who is a contributor to the National Party. There's no mention of that person being a contributor to the National Party. It was just framed as an opinion piece from a concerned member of the community. And it's that stuff that's important context. Who is this person and why are they taking this position? I want to know if it's an Labour staffer or a lobbyist who has a background in the party or that sort of thing, if they're going to have an opinion piece, that is important. It places context on what they are saying and why they are saying it. But the crassness of people charging into this tragedy and apportioning blame to people that were not there.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if we had a full-on friggin' police state. You know, you would have to have cops on every dairy in the country to say that no dairy owner is going to get robbed or stabbed on this particular night.
Oh,
And
look,
that is impossible for any government to
I
say
think
that there
it's
won't be.
I think it's fair to ask some questions, but what I won't stand by and let go is the hypocrisy within that. So, and we know the game, we know the shell game. We know that if she had have turned up to the grieving family, there were people who criticized the Prime Minister for going to the funeral of the 51 murdered Muslims with a headscarf on as a photo op. You know, there's actually no winning here. But talking about how people were responding. Now, I haven't watched this because I don't watch Karen Plunkett, but the headline on Karen Plunkett's show was this, right? To talk about this. Referred to it as an Auckland ram raid death. And I just thought,
Can't even get that right.
Well, because ram raids are crime. Well, it's not that that's a conscious decision. Ram raids are a big buzzword at the moment for crime to talk down Labour and talk up the softness on crime. And there was a death. So let's put them both in the same headline, even though it was not minimizing the issues with ram raids, but this was nothing to do with it. So not only these people who are doing this, then they're going one step further and fabricating connections to make it seem quite doubly bad. I mean, look, we've got to be careful because we don't want to make it sound like it's not horrific, but you don't need to make it any worse. It's horrific. This is an horrific story and the kind of tragedy no one would ever want to see. But you don't need to beat it up and try and attempt to make it worse. It's bad enough. And if the yardstick's going to be, right, and this is the thing, if the yardstick's going to be when there is a murder in your electorate, you must be in your electorate, then make that the yardstick. Mr Seymour didn't hold himself to that standard when he had a double murder in his electorate last year and he went to the South Island field days, but he's now putting out there that the Prime Minister should be held to that. And he's also taking in and retail crime. It's like, no, let's at least be consistent. Let's be consistent and let's say, okay, you know what? I don't have a problem with the idea of an electorate MP staying in their electorate when a tragedy has happened. I don't have it, but don't fucking call out someone for not doing it when you didn't do it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a real problem with double standards and what I would call intellectual honesty around a lot of issues at the moment. But
intellectual,
hey, we don't like intellectuals around here. We just have our reckons and we just speaks them. Yeah, there's a place for a local MP to help out with this, you know, and it's like a week afterwards and go, is there anything that I can do for you? How's things going with the police? Is there anything that you need me to help with?
Yeah, or it's connecting.
A day after going, hello, I'm the Prime Minister.
Yeah, and I'm not saying this to back the Prime Minister. I don't know what's happened, but the way that she says she's done it, which is connecting with some other community leaders to sort of check in the day after or 2 days after someone's been murdered, seems to be an appropriate way to do it. You know, it's a little bit like, you know, if you have a family tragedy, you check in with another family member to see how you can help. You don't go to the person who's just lost their wife or their husband or their father, but you check in with like the neighbor or the uncle or the whatever to see what you can do. So I'm not saying that in a way to defend the Prime Minister, but that seems to be an appropriate response. Check in with the situation, be available if you need to be, get involved, and say you're going to be there when it's appropriate. Not the day after, oh, what, your husband was killed yesterday. Well, I'm the Prime Minister. Here I am. You know, it's like, what are you fucking talking about?
The other thing, and this might be taking like a step back from this, right? There has been so much coverage of the ram raids around the country, youth crime, and now this sort of stuff, the smash and grab robberies that have and a murder. I would love to see what the stats are. Right, because we're getting a lot of airtime, we're getting a lot of column inches, we're getting a lot of headlines.
Are you talking about
crime is out of
the
control?
stats around ram rates? Because we did crime the other night. You should have been here, Joey.
Where was it last night?
Maybe. I can't remember.
I can't remember much.
Are you talking specifically ram raids? Because there has been a report that there is a ram raid every 15 hours. Now, I will challenge that to the hilt, because that's 2 every 3 days, basically. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a spate over a week where there was a ram raid every 15 hours. But I would bet almost anything that you will not be able to say in this calendar year that there has been a ram raid every 15 minutes. Now, that's not to negate the serious nature of what's happening with these shop owners. But I said this last night. If you look statistically, and the thing that's horrible about statistics is they are cold-hearted, right? But if you look statistically at the number of dairies that are ram raided tonight versus the numbers that aren't, statistically, it's a very minor problem. Individually, it's a huge fucking problem.
Yeah. Oh, look, I saw a story the other day of a business that has had something like 43 ram raids or ram raid attempts. I think it was a liquor store up north somewhere. And they'd taken to social media to put the video up and that sort of thing, going, what the fuck is going on? If you've had 43 ram raids, I would be saying the same goddamn thing. But yeah, it just seems to be like a really sudden uptick of this. And I feel like the media may have latched onto it and is just amplifying the problem. And then the perception of it is that there's a lot more happening than perhaps there is.
Well,
I'm looking at right?
I'm looking at a story now, right? And the story is says the story is at the end of August, and it says since May there was 129. So that is 15 an hour. That's 15 an hour. Holy shit! One every 15 hours.
There's not enough cars in this country for that. That's
basically 130 over 100 and is that 4 months? Did I say 1, 2, 3, 400? Oh, that's one a day. So that's one every 24 hours. So I'm like I say it again, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a period where there was 1 every 15 hours, 2 every 3 days. Well, no, that's 3 every 2 days. But that's not going to be what the stats read for the whole year. I happily bet my house on that.
Jonty's just clarified it's 43 raids across 20 stores in a chain over 18 months.
So the same. So in a chain. So therefore, if it was Glassons, for example, what would it be? But it might be 10 different Glassons, but all Glassons being hit.
Yeah.
We should check that.
Thanks for that clarification, Jonty.
We'll take that with a grain of salt, not to disrespect Jonty. Just we like to make sure we're absolutely accurate here. So I'll look for that while we're talking. And
it's another interesting angle here. How many dairies are there in Auckland, and how many police officers in Auckland? Can we get a cop in every dairy?
Yeah, I used to do some work with Ian Grant, a parenting guy, and he used to talk about police officers. He used to talk about from a parenting point of view, and he used to talk about having how did he word it? Like police don't, not that they don't matter with stopping things, but basically the point being that there's not enough of them, and the only way you can really get to the Shangri-La that everyone wants to see is if people have a policeman on the inside. So we monitor ourselves is what he's basically saying. I think we shouldn't attribute that to Ian because I'm butchering and it's not fair. But yeah, I look, people who've watched this for long enough, you know what we do. We call a spade a spade. We want to be fair and we want to call out bullshit. And this thing from Seymour today was just a stinking, steaming pile of bullshit. Because not because the actual subject matter wasn't a fair conversation around local MP staying in their electorate, but because he didn't fucking do it. So he's just using it to score points. And if anyone's politicizing these deaths, it's actually David Seymour, because he's using this death to try and embarrass the Prime Minister, when if you look at his track record, he didn't do what he's telling her she should do. So therefore he is politicizing this death.
But this is kind of Seymour's thing, right? Because he's got no chance of ACT policy made. Like, he can come up there and go, ACT is going to do this, and pull some fantastical thing out of his asshole. knowing that he never, ever will be in the position of having to back it up. Because the best that he can hope for is that National will pat him on his head and say, we're going to take some of your ideas and we'll let you in the room.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
there are some concerns though. Like, I mean, you weren't here for the conversation we had with Pat Newman, who was a principal from Northland and part of the Principals Association up there. Him thinking that basically National is following Act's lead when it comes to policies around education.
Yeah,
And
that's terrifying.
And that Seymour wants to be the Minister of Education.
I would not want Act anywhere in any distance near education.
Well, he's as we said last night, and no one in the media seems to be reporting this. He's already signaled, this is David Seymour and Act, already signaled bulk funding based on attendance. So therefore,
because bulk funding worked amazingly last time. Last time round was an absolute champion program, and then to hang that off one metric.
Yeah, it'd be good as well.
Genius.
Be good to see how that will work. Like if you've got a global pandemic going on and a whole bunch of kids are away, for a couple of weeks, to then drop the funding so those teachers can't get paid entirely because you're basing it on attendance, not on roll, but on attendance. Then what happens if there are a lot of people away due to things like global pandemic? Then there's less money to that school. So what, all the teachers take a pay cut, or what? You just fire some of them for those 2 weeks and then rehire them? How does that work?
Just
lunacy.
Out of his ass.
Lunacy. All right. Is there anything in the chat we need to get to, or should we go talk about Hunter Biden's laptop?
I think we can move on to that.
This is an all kind of encompassing conversation. It's a little bit of a anything to see here conversation. It's also a little bit of a what's Elon doing with Twitter conversation. And it's also the right wing in America starting to go, oh, here comes some juice. And I'm like, let's test that metric, shall we? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's have a look, and I'm assuming everyone's going to be able to hear this because it's supposed to be working. There's a story. This is Sky News Australia, so this is a Murdoch station. I think most of the time they're like Fox News with no charisma, and because they have no charisma, they have to go kind of twice as hard on the right-wing tropes, in my opinion. Like, you watch this lady, I don't know who she is. No disrespect. No, well, I am going to disrespect. Some disrespect. It does look like a hostage video. Like the way she speaks to camera, it looks like a hostage video. I am waiting for her to do like scratch her nose or something to give away something. But anyway,
2 dudes from ISIS in the background.
This is the you're going to laugh now because I've just said it looks like a hostage video. This is very serious, Joey. It's very serious. This is setting up a conversation around what Elon's going to do about the communication to do with Hunter Biden's laptop. And tell me straight away if you can't hear it, Joey, because I'll try and talk to you with it. But here we go.
Well, it's good news for those who want answers on Hunter Biden's jamming laptop. Elon Musk has only owned Twitter for less than a month and has already bought a Christmas present for conservatives when he wrote one tweet. A Twitter user wrote, "Raise your hand if you think Elon Musk should make public all internal discussions about the decision to censor the New York Post story on Hunter Biden's laptop before the 2020 election in the interest of transparency." To which Elon Musk replied, "This is necessary to restore public trust." That comment from Twitter's new owner is a breath of fresh air for online users who for so long have believed the platform censors important information and free speech.
Okay. Well, this has got about another 90 seconds to go. Just remember what's been said. Although we're getting the signal, just tell us where you are and we'll send the SEALs to come and rescue you. All right. Important information. That's really important. This is important information. All right. And it's been suppressed and it's important. And now she's going to go into, I think she blinks 3 times with the right eye, which I think that means I'm like northwest Sydney or something like that. I'm not entirely sure though. But she goes to talk about how the conservatives are creaming themselves over. I might be paraphrasing that a little bit, but are creaming themselves over this.
The New York Post was a victim of this in October 2020 when their first piece on Hunter Biden's laptop was published, only to be censored by social media giants. Twitter suspended the Post's account and blocked any user from sharing the story, while Facebook restricted users from seeing it. Mark Zuckerberg actually weighed in on this in an interview with Joe Rogan this year, where he claimed the FBI came to the team and said that they should be on high alert that Russian propaganda was about to drop. The FBI didn't specifically say it was about Hunter Biden, but Zuckerberg said it fit the pattern. This was the whole thing. When the Post dropped the original story, it was passed off as Russian disinformation. But the United States was only...
Remember, it's the story, the important story.
3 weeks away from the 2020 presidential election. So there has been
That's that presidential election that apparently Hunter Biden was running in. Remember that election that he ran for president?
a lot of criticism over Twitter's decision to censor an important story before then. When Elon Musk declared it was necessary to go through the company's internal dialogue on why it decided to censor it, he was greeted with some enthusiastic responses online. One person wrote, "Do it tomorrow. Will make for great Thanksgiving dinner conversation." Another wrote, "Elon Musk, I think buying Twitter may have a bigger impact in the world than landing on Mars, changing the world one tweet at a time." Someone else wrote, "How about making public any conversations that happen between Twitter and the FBI or any other federal agency?" Finally, "This is going to be huge, and yes, please."
Right, there you go. Now remember, this is Hunter Biden's laptop. This is the son of the now president, former vice president, and who was running for election 3 weeks out from the election. Chewy, do you want to? I've got another bit of a clip to play, because what I'm going to play is also what has, because all this information is out now, yeah, and we know what's in the laptop. So we're going to talk a bit about that, because it's a fair question to ask if suppressing this information, if that's indeed what happened, was fair or not. In other words, would the information that comes out, would it have been information that the public needed to know to impact their vote, or would it have been picked up by the right nefariously and spun in a way that might have affected the election but might not have been fair? So it's a fair question to ask that. And one of the ways we know if the decision to suppress it, if that's what happened, was right or not, is what was in it. I mean, if it was filled with stardust and moonbeams, it wouldn't have meant anything. If it was full of, private messages from Hunter Biden to Joe Biden about how Joe Biden killed JFK, fair enough. We should know about that. Where in the middle does it fall? But anything from you first, Joey?
So I don't have I'm not fully across this issue, right? I've mainly focused on things around the outside of it. And please correct me if I'm wrong. The idea was that Hunter Biden was having some dealings with the Ukrainians, previous Ukrainian administration. Was that
part of it?
Yep, that was it. And so you've got to see it in the context of that. Russia was trying to get some juicy gossip out there in the run-up to an election where the two candidates were Hunter Biden's dad and the famously pro-Putin and heavily compromised to Russian oligarchs, Trump. So who would benefit? Certainly the Russians, certainly Trump. And we know what the Russians' whole gamble was now is that they wanted to destabilize Ukraine and the US at the same time.
It is also particularly interesting how the conservatives are wetting themselves over this information and think it was, the worst thing in the world that ever happened to not release all this information about Hunter Biden and his laptop. However, in the cycle before that, when the FBI released a bunch of stuff around Hillary Clinton and her emails just leading up to the election, which many think would have been a tipping point for someone, they were fine with that. It was like that was the. So it seems that they're trying to. That's what they want. That got released, and that impacted, and that was one of the reasons perhaps that they maybe held back some of this information. That got released in the end. There you go, Hillary's emails, and it was null and void. But then that got used by some to point towards nefarious actions when there really was none. And I think it's been pretty clear by now that whilst it's something that she shouldn't have done, have her own private server, compared to taking physical files and storing them in your office in Mar-a-Lago with top secret written on them, it was nothing. So when that happens, no, it's fine. He's allowed to do that. You know what I mean? It's like it's the narrative being painted. So let's do this.
So I don't know what's in the laptop.
Let's have a look.
Basically the thing. I know everything around the thing, but not what was in it.
So they found basically the hard drive's been released. Yeah. There's websites out there that have 120,000 emails in them that were from the laptop, allegedly. So now Sky News, remember Fox News, but no, talent, are going to release some of the biggest controversies from the laptop. Because what you do is you go through the 120,000 emails and you pull out the most damning ones. Yeah, that's what you do. You pull out the most damning ones. And they're going to give us a few examples of the most damning ones. And just remember, Joe Biden is running for president, right? So for these to be damning and warranting of being in the public domain significantly, they have to be damning to Joe Biden and not just embarrassing. Because let's be honest, there's no question that Hunter Biden's a bit of a dirtbag and he's used his father's name to get jobs that he hasn't deserved. And like any politician with a child, like any Trump child, if we're honest.
Like George Bush Jr.
So
right for the top job.
So for this to be warranting of, nefarious suppression, it really needs to be able to anchor itself directly to Joe Biden with illegal or an issue that compromises him. It really does need to tie to Joe Biden, or else it's a dickhead son. It's nepotism, which is revolting, and it's someone trying to use his dad's name to make money. They're the two options. Let's see which it was.
To break down every single scandal that has come to light over the past few years, but here are just a few of the things that have come out of the laptop. In May this year, more than 120,000 emails from Hunter Biden's laptop were published on a searchable online database that anyone could access. There was so much to come from these emails that stretched from 2010 to 2019, but here are a few of the standouts. Some emails show Hunter may have engaged in numerous shady overseas deals with China and Ukraine, where he indicated that his father could be involved in his business.
Okay, really important thing, where he indicated that his father could be involved in his business. I have to be honest, this is a bit embarrassing, but I've tried to ride someone's coattails before. Someone with high profile that I was working in radio, and I might not have been quite as blatant as that, but saying, I've never actually said this, but I could imagine someone saying, oh, I can get such and such on board. So he said he could get his father on board, right? Just that's a really clear distinction at the moment.
One email showed Hunter and his business partner, James Gilliar, discussing a lucrative deal with a Chinese energy conglomerate. The email revealed the pair discussed 10 held by H for the big guy. This has later been alleged the statement meant 10% held for Joe Biden, who was known as the big guy. Another email revealed the now president's son was approached for a potential Biden, who was known as the been alleged the statement meant. The email revealed the pair discussed 10 held by H for the big guy. This has later been alleged the statement meant 10% held for Joe Biden, who was known as the big guy.
Now, just be aware, because Greg in the chat has said that we need to tell the truth. It's been alleged that meant it was Hunter Biden. Two other things to be aware of.
Pretty fucking tenuous.
Joe, but let's also be aware. Someone who is using nepotism in his father's name to get into positions in power that he doesn't deserve, that's completely fair. Then also saying my dad's going to be involved and he's going to be a percentage holder doesn't actually necessarily tie it to Joe Biden. So there needs to be evidence other than a smackhead, alcoholic, druggy porn star saying daddy's going to be involved. There needs to be evidence. At the moment, at the very most, there's hearsay at the moment.
Another email revealed the now president's son was approached for a potential real estate investment meeting with Prince Andrew in 2010. Other bombshells.
That's it. That's the headline. He was talking to Prince Andrew about a real estate deal. That's the smoking gun.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've been going on about this for years.
So far,
years.
I was Cookie saying he was porn star. No, what I mean is there was some lured pictures in his laptop. That's what I meant by porn star, not official porn star. So far, these are the smoking guns that Murdoch's empire has talked about: shady overseas deals and name dropping, and Prince and a connection to Prince Andrew. They're the two biggest headlines from the content so far about Hunter Biden's laptop. Let's go to one more.
What's to come from this laptop include the fact the leaked text messages the Daily Mail obtained showed a potential connection to Vladimir Putin. Hunter was engaging in a text message exchange with his sister-in-law Hallie Biden when he made a few incriminating statements. He's detailing to Hallie all the things he's currently dealing with, while she's telling him he needs to get sober.
So he's off his head, and telling his sister about what's going on, and she's saying you need to get sober. Now, one other thing about this is the last one, so we can leave it here for now, of the three things that they mention. He's detailing a connection with Vladimir Putin. Hang on, Republicans. I thought that was a fucking good thing this day and age. I thought you guys were pro-Putin because Trump's pro-Putin. How can you be pro-Putin and pro-Russia when Trump is, and think that it's nefarious if Hunter Biden is doing business with him? Pick your side. Which is it going to be?
The side is Trump. The side is always Trump. Whatever. God, I hope Trump sees me.
Sees you?
Yeah. I just want his big meaty eyes to gaze my way.
You've just basically heard a huge amount. Now the accusation with Joe Biden is this 10% business. There's no proof that is an actual connection. Like the Sun saying, first of all, there's no evidence that big guy is Joe Biden. But then if it is Joe Biden, there's no evidence that actually Joe Biden signed on to that. Right? Now, fair enough, tenuous link, make the case, whatever, but make the case and provide the evidence. And that's the thing that we struggle with at the moment. So
I demand reciprocity. We need to see Donald Trump Jr.'s laptop. I bet that would be interesting.
How about we just start with Donald Trump's tax returns?
We know there won't be emails. I don't think the dude can work a computer. But like in all seriousness, I reckon Don Jr.'s laptop would be a gold mine of deals like, yes, my dad's involved.
Of course.
And yeah, 100%. Like just because you say a thing doesn't mean it's true. And when we're talking about these guys, like, let's be honest, Hunter Biden, as you said, scumbag, drug addict, all of that sort of stuff. You can just come up and say these things. The 10% has to go to the big guy. The big guy's me and my drug habit. It can be stuff like that.
My dealer.
Yeah, the big guy's my drug dealer. He's
6'7"
and scary. There's a lot of things in it. But for these guys to be banging on away at this for literally years, and that's all that comes out of it. It's like, holy shit. And it was the same with Hillary's emails. It was like she what was it? She went up and did that mammoth investigation where she just sat there for like a day and a half answering questions about her emails. And Trump won't do that. Trump won't do the same thing.
Look, nepotism is repugnant. It's revolting. There is no question that Hunter Biden has made money off his father's name, that has got positions off his father's name. Like, one of the criticisms about the laptop thing is, and he got this $1 million salary that he wasn't entitled to. Yeah, he did, because his father's the president, and it's revolting. But if you're going to go down that path, Sky News, what about the Trump children? Now, they were in the White House. Think about whatever political party you support wherever you are in the world. If you're in New Zealand and it's Labour, if you're in New Zealand if it's National, if it's ACT, if you're in the UK and it's the Tories, wherever it is, could you imagine the leader of the party that you support at your party's national conference also having 4 other members of their family talking at that conference? At the RNC conference, one of the RNC conferences when Trump was president, 5 members of the Trump family spoke. Get off your high horse about Hunter Biden shouldn't be entitled to the salary, because you're correct. 5 members of the Trump family spoke at one of the RNC conferences, and you're complaining about nepotism? Come on.
One of my favorites was what is it? Ivanka's husband, that
Kushner, Jared Kushner. No diplomatic experience at all. So solve the Middle East.
Your job is to solve the Middle East. Off you go. Oh my God. Yes.
I don't want to play whataboutism, right? Because I don't like whataboutism, like saying what about Trump? But the reality is, if there's nothing to see in the Hunter Biden laptop, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you are going to say all these connections because of Joe Biden, then you must also say all these connections because of Donald Trump, because of George W. Bush, because of whoever it is. You're not going to be allowed to get away with playing hypocritical. I think I was doing the Hippocratic Oath. Hypocrisy. You're not going to be able to get away with hypocrisy. Not on my watch, Chewy. Not on my fucking watch. Anyway.
No, same standard, and you can just underline it now. America is fucked. You can't unfuck that. It's so fucked. Like every time you scratch a problem, there's a bigger problem, and it's a Russian doll of problems that you can't solve. Burn it down, start from scratch.
I heard someone once talking about like an onion and it was full or something. I can't quite remember what they're saying.
Oh, yes. No, we need to make that merchandise, by the way. The big hairy news onion of shit.
How dare you? Don't call me that. Hey, let's get into our sort of last story of the day, because as you're saying, America is fucked. I think you said country wise. It makes me think about Qatar and what's happening in Qatar at the moment. Here's a story from Today FM. Lloyd Burr Live. Lloyd Burr does the drive show on Today FM. Now, his story is really an introduction to what we're going to talk about. He's being a bit flippant, actually, about the actual story. Then we'll go into the story. And it's kind of based around the idea that Qatar, I keep calling it Qatar, but everyone else calls it Qatar. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I've always called it Qatar. Yeah, maybe Kiwis do call it Qatar. It's a little bit Caribbean.
Doesn't mean it's right.
Whatever.
But yeah,
Qatar. I heard someone. What did I hear someone say the other day? You know how you can have, like in the old days, you had a valet to help dress you. Mm-hmm. I heard a comedian out of America calling them a valet the other day. You need a valet. I'm just like, maybe that's an American thing. They call them valets, but I'm thinking valet. Anyway, so Lloyd Burr introduced this story for us, and the story is bigger because it's about the World Cup in Qatar, and it's about I think we know the answer to this question. How on earth they got awarded it? The answer is money. But still, when you look at what's going on at the moment, it's still confusing that it's actually there. Have a listen to what Lloyd had to say.
Why does Qatar hate rainbows so much? I know they hate gay people. Actually, anyone who's not straight. They hate anyone who's not straight. But why are they censoring rainbows? A former Welsh football player had her rainbow bucket hat confiscated as she entered one of the stadia in Qatar. And all of it was filmed. It's just sad to watch. The security staff, they come and question her numerous times. They point at her hat, and then she's taken away to another room. And then on Twitter, she said they confiscated my rainbow bucket hat. But isn't it just ridiculous how anything rainbow is banned? I wouldn't be allowed to take my lanyard to Qatar. Here it is here. I've got my, you can't see it, but you can hear it. It's a rainbow lanyard. So I wouldn't be allowed to take that.
Sounded very rainbowy.
But is anything rainbow theme banned, do you think? Or anything with colours in a row? Anything that's, got colours all lined up in a row?
We'll leave this to fade out there. He now talks about all the things that would be silly to ban if they were rainbows, like hundreds and thousands and stuff. And it's, he's making a point at the ludicrous nature of it. But I do want to actually have a look at the story and what actually happened. So this is the former, she's a Welsh football player. She's a former Welsh football player. And this is actually her going into the stadium in Qatar. And this is her rainbow hat that she's wearing. And this is what happened. They filmed the whole thing. Literally won't let her wear the hat in. For those of you who are listening, we're basically watching a TikTok with a lady getting her hat confiscated from her, taken away to another room and taken off her.
I reckon there was a fair chance that she knew that was going to happen, considering they were recording the entire time, but
from different angles.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. So that was the incident that actually happened.
Who knew that a rainbow bucket hat could bring down an entire culture? But there you go.
So here's the story. No, that's not the story. This is the story. Here's the story here. World Cup treatment of UK fans being closely monitored following rainbow bucket hat ban. Supporters claimed they were told it was a banned symbol despite FIFA, and this is the thing, FIFA has said Rainbow-colored flags and clothing would not be prohibited in stadiums. Same-sex relationships are outlawed in the Gulf state, but the host nation's organizers had repeatedly said all are welcome in the run-up to the competition. The hats were designed in partnership with Wales's LGBT plus football association, the Rainbow Wall, alongside the FAW, which I think must be the Football Association of Wales, probably, to promote inclusion and equality in the sport. Right? Then I wanted for us to be aware. Here is a Human Rights Watch report on Qatar, and this came out in October of this year. Security forces arrest, abuse LGBT community or people, wasn't it? People. Qatar Preventative Security Department forces have arbitrarily arrested lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people and subjected them to ill treatment in detention. Human Rights Watch said today LGBT people interviewed said that their mistreatment took place as recently as September 2022 as Qatar prepared to host the 2022 FIFA Men's World Cup in November, and even as the government came under intense scrutiny for its treatment of LGBT people. Human Rights Watch documented 6 cases of severe and repeated beatings and 5 cases of sexual harassment in police custody between 2019 and 2022. Security forces arrested people in public places based solely on their gender expression and unlawfully searched their phones. As a requirement for their release, security forces mandated that transgender women detainees attend conversion therapy sessions at a government-sponsored behavioral healthcare centre. And this is the place that has the biggest single sporting event on the planet.
So, I'm not a sports guy.
I noticed that.
But there's so much stuff around this World Cup that is dodgy, right? What was it? 6,500 people, foreign workers, died building the stadiums.
Yes, I saw that the other day as well. Where did I see that?
It's hard to concentrate on the game when there's the screaming of so many ghosts.
There was
full of ghosts.
I think I watched a clip on YouTube that was something like the city that wasn't here 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you look it up, the city that wasn't here 10 years ago, it's because 10 years ago when they got awarded the World Cup, the city where all the stadium are didn't exist. And it said it in there.
And so, like, you have certain segments of the Middle East wanting to present themselves as a modern, urbane society. Very flashy sky, please come to our country. Look at, we've got high rises and we've got the FIFA World Cup and all that sort of stuff. But then there's this clash of they've invited the entire world to their country and they're not ready for what the entire world is going to bring.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to bring their social causes and they're going to bring the way that they live in their own country. There's the question of the LGBTQ crowd. There is the question of alcohol consumption. There is the, whether people are married or not. All of that sort of stuff. That is going to become an issue when you invite everyone to your country. I saw that they famously pulled a massive U-turn on the first night and say, actually, we're not going to have beer in the stadiums, which has cost FIFA a whole lot of money, which I don't care about because FIFA should have seen this as a potential problem by having a World Cup in a dry country. But the flip side of that is, what this country's like. Their laws. So part of me doesn't have a lot of sympathy for going and sort of poking the bear a little bit. There's going to be a pain point. That is the issue. I think if I was in the position of being a gay or transgendered football fan, I would not want a piece of this World Cup.
Yeah, that's an interesting one as well. I'm also thinking as you're talking about how if a visitor to this country was from a country where you could have multiple wives, we would probably be okay with that if they were visiting the country, even though it's not a part of our law. Like, we're not going to say, I'm sorry, you can only use the word wife for one of the females in your group when you're here. So the idea about having like same-sex relationships from outside the country coming into your country, Like, in other words, it's not your laws. Your laws are abhorrent, but it's not your law, so you should be fine with it. I can't see the rest of the world, unless it's a religious country, clamping down on visitors to their country participating in things, rules, laws from their country that aren't a part of your culture. So it's a bizarre one. I heard a good one the other day. I think it might have been Budweiser. After all the beer got cancelled, Budweiser has agreed to send all of the beer that's not being sold at the stadiums to the country that wins the Football World Cup. It might have been Budweiser. I'm not sure. It was a beer company.
Yeah, it was Budweiser.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it's a hard issue. Like, a lot of us in the West would go, look, we consider your values to be backwards, abhorrent, the treatment, and we may very well be right. But by the same token, you've got to go in with your eyes wide open, right? And I think if that's the case, I would just be like, I do not want to support an event that is purely for the benefit of this country, whose social mores and laws I don't agree with. The whole World Cup seems incredibly corrupt because of how this has come about and how FIFA have put these teams and supporters in the position that they're going to be in that country.
Yeah. I was wondering as well, if you had known about this, I thought of a really good invention today. You know how you can buy material, like my kids have them, you buy those cups and stuff that when you put water inside them, they turn hot.
Mm-hmm.
What we should have done, right? So we're a bit late for this one, is made bucket hats out of material that looks black, but when you wet it, it becomes rainbow. And everyone could have walked in with their hats on, got into the stadium, wet their heads, and then they would have been able to fight the man, so to speak. But we've missed that opportunity, Chewy. So the Sharks are out. I'm out.
Yeah. It's kind of brought my mind back to a trip I did with my partner at the time. We went to Malaysia.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a Muslim country, but reasonably progressive sometimes.
Yeah.
But even then, we weren't married, so we couldn't stay in the same hotel room.
Oh, really?
But the hotel was very keen to point out that they did have 2 single rooms with an adjoining door.
Right.
Just putting it out there.
Did you not know that when you went, like, didn't you just say this is my wife? I mean, what do they want? Did you say you met?
Well, I mean, I was like 23 at the time, so but I mean that puts them in the position of like, okay, documentation, please. But
sorry, sir, I don't travel my world with my my marriage certificate. You'll have to believe me.
It's also quite hard for we can't. The West can't charge into these countries and go, this is the way, we've got it perfect, because we freaking don't.
Yeah.
You rewind the clock. You can't take the moral high ground and then look back like 8 to 10 years and go, oh yeah, we're a beacon of light on trans issues. We're still not a beacon of light on trans issues.
I wonder as well what LGBT competitors within the World Cup are doing, and how you must have to want that World Cup so desperately badly to basically just ignore the goings on around you to participate in the conference. And I'm not judging people by doing that, because that's a decision they make. It was the same thing in Sochi for the Winter Olympics in Russia. It was a very similar vibe, and there was a whole bunch of the athletes who'd go down the giant slalom at the bottom. They'd pull their shirts open, there'd be a rainbow underneath and that kind of stuff. So yeah.
It's one of those. I am enjoying these sort of troll jobs. I am enjoying the TikToks of people smuggling alcohol into the stadium. But I mean, you do run the risk in some of these countries of some very real consequences. I mean, we might laugh that it's a stupid rainbow bucket hat, but ultimately that person got taken into a different room, and you don't know at that point what is going to happen. I mean, you can take it to a reasonably severe sort of point, is that's the basics of what's kicked off what's happening in Iran at the moment.
Right.
Somebody broke a rule about covering her hair.
Yeah.
Someone called her on it. Took
killed.
her away to another location, and she's dead. There can be some pretty heavy consequences in that part of the world.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes charging in there to make a point, good on you, but you've got to be so aware of what it can be like, what the potential is.
What I'll try and do is scrolling along the bottom of the screen right now, and if you're listening, just Big Hairy News on Facebook is the Facebook page. I've just been looking while we've been talking. I can't find the YouTube. It was like a little 12-minute documentary sort of thing, and it mentioned the thing about the deaths. I'll go find it in my history, and I'll put a link to it on our Facebook page. So if people want to check it out for themselves, they can check it out for themselves.
I mean, I had a friend who worked in Qatar for a while, and he says it is so weird because they are trying to manage keeping their traditional values and attracting the Western world. And those two things don't necessarily work at all. You can go to a hotel and there's a full bar like you'd see, in London, in LA, that sort of thing. But if you're a local, you can be arrested for going there. But if you're from the West, fine. It's very, very strange.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I wonder about these, because I was going to say they bring in so much money, but to be honest, mostly whether it's an Olympics or a World Cup or whatever, you end up losing money overall in a country because they have to spend billions of dollars on building stadium and infrastructure. But it does always give a huge amount of exposure for that country. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I'm looking forward to the first athlete doing something like fucking, if you were a player for Portugal or something, if you're Ronaldo, whatever his name is, how they've all got different kit, different gear. So why haven't one of them done like a rainbow shirt as one of their alternate strips?
Well, the British team and Wales, they were going to wear the armbands, and they had made statements saying we are going to wear these One Love armbands that we've been wearing. And then at the last minute, the team's management said, no, they're not. We can't put the teams in this position of being knocked out of the competition.
Oh, fuck that.
Because of it. It was such a backtrack. But you've got political statements being made all the way through this, like Iran's football team refusing to sing their national anthem because of what is going on over there, or covering their mouths in the team photos. People are making statements. Sports and making statements is a thing. And like, imagine if that statement is the English team, one of the ones that has the potential to win the whole thing, potentially, I don't know, walks out with these armbands, knowing that they're going to get eliminated from the competition because of it, and doing it anyway. What's that statement say?
I've just got this picture in my head, like when the I think it's the Australian rugby team come out, or maybe it's the English. That's the English rugby team. They come out to warm up before a game. Even during the national anthems, they wear a jacket, like to stay warm. You imagine if all these players during the national anthems shaking hands, that kind of stuff, with jackets, and then just as the whistle goes up, they all take their jackets off and they've got some kind of rainbow strip on. I just imagine what would happen. Yep. Would literally the anti-gay police come on and march all the players off? Imagine. If I was in a team where I think I'd be like, we should be doing this. This will be amazing. Because really, when it comes down to it, a medal around your neck, versus that, fuck it.
They're chipping away at the small things. So make the big statement. You can take gear off our fans, but are they going to drag the English football team off the pitch? Is FIFA going to allow one of the most popular teams in that whole thing to be eliminated because of a rainbow?
I wonder what happens. Maybe at Qatar it doesn't rain very much, but I wonder what they do when there's actually a rainbow. What do they do? They freak out. They make everyone go inside. Shoot at it.
Look, I don't think there's much chance of Qatar seeing a rainbow. It is a desert country.
There'll be one once in a while. If there's a shower, there can be a rainbow.
Go in with a hose and make one.
But all right. Nick reckons if that happened, the stadium would be a riot. Another one says the Interior Minister of Germany wear the rainbow armband next of the FIFA president at the game. I just think, I mean, then again, I like sport, but I don't value it. You know, I really don't. It's just it's not even the icing on the cake. It's kind of the icing in the cupboard that wasn't used for the cake, but it's still icing. I enjoy it. I like watching it, but I'm not one of these nutters for it. So, well, it's probably very easy for me to say, well, it's only a World Cup, because for them, like Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, I think this is going to be his last chance, and he's basically won everything except this. So I can understand how someone, I mean, if you're working at the pinnacle, you know, Chewy, you're a stand-up. If you had a chance to do a Netflix special, you know, seen all over the world, or give it up for a political statement, that would be quite a hard decision to make.
Yeah, and that's fair. Yeah, do you want to open for one of the biggest comedians in the world? But that big comedian in the world is Dave Chappelle, and he's just come off a speaking engagement where he says trans people can get in the fucking sea. The choice is yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think
everybody talks big until it's actually in front of you.
Yeah, I think the same about, you know, broadcasting or doing this. Imagine if, you know, what's his name, who got a house up in Central, who started up Facebook with them. I think is he a PayPal guy, one of those guys?
Oh, Peter Thiel.
Yeah, Peter Thiel saw us and said, "Hey, I'll fund you. Here's $1 million for a couple of years." What would we do?
We would focus on taking his money and shit talking him relentlessly for as long as the money remains.
I think that's one of the things I like, and just a bit of a tangent, one of the things I really do like about John Oliver's Last Week Tonight. He's constantly shitting on HBO, and he's constantly shitting on Warner Discovery. Did it again in the weekend. I really like that as a style of broadcasting.
Yes, absolutely.
So Peter, if you're watching, give us a call. I'm sure you've got the kind of power to find our numbers. All right. Anything else? Anything in the chat that we need to throw up there?
Yeah, no, not really. I think we covered it all.
Did you put Simon's comment up about citizenship?
Oh yes. Okay. Yeah, Simon mentioned this. I don't know the truth. I have no reason to doubt it, but
no. Yeah. I think he's wrong. I don't think it's that high. I think in the 90s is the percentage of people who are there working. So it was in the same documentary. I've been scrolling while I've been talking to see if I can find it. That might be a generous, maybe I'm wrong, but that also might be a generous estimation, because I, for some reason in my head, the number 94% of people in Qatar aren't Qatari citizens. If that's a word, Qatari.
And this is an issue in Saudi Arabia as well, is that Saudis don't work. You know, they get paid by the government purely out of oil royalties and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so they get Malaysians, Pakistanis to come over to do the menial jobs. Now, can you imagine fixing a road in 58-degree heat? You know, you see pictures of road workers, and they're literally standing under the sunshade, covered in wet towels and stuff to keep them warm, and they're fixing a road. Nobody's thought, just do it at night. But also, it's all this menial jobs, and they don't have rights. People disappear. There's abuse. They're paid terribly. It's rife through that part of the world.
I just actually thought for the first time, because as you're saying 58 degrees, I'm reminded of a story that it was 58 degrees building those stadiums.
Yep.
And then the announcer went, "That's 125 Fahrenheit." And the audience went, "Oh, so maybe it was actually John Oliver who did that story." Maybe I'm getting confused, and it was John Oliver who actually did that story, and it's Last Week Tonight. It's not actually
I think he did cover it in the run up to the World Cup about how corrupt that whole thing was, and the plight of foreign workers, and how many people had died in construction accidents, a heat stroke, and that sort of thing.
I'm not going to play it because it'll get us dumped immediately off YouTube, but here you go. Last Week Tonight, John Oliver, World Cup 2022, migrant workers. Last Week Tonight, John Oliver, human rights. So actually that might be, maybe I watched a few of them and that was one of them, and maybe some of the stuff I'm citing is stuff that I saw on his. So there you go. If you want to look it up yourselves and go and find it. Go and find it. Go forth and multiply it. Hey, now Chewy, we're going to hopefully have a bit of a big Hearing News catch up towards the end of the year, and I was thinking what we should do is, I think we should, whilst we're there, we'll send out some emails this week, but I'm thinking it might either be the 3rd of December or the 10th of December, that we might actually have a that might be the evening that we do like a group meeting for the patrons.
Oh yeah.
And so like around the barbecue, maybe we'll throw the patron video up and people can join us for 10, 15, 20 minutes and come and have a snag with us. So
that sounds pretty good. A virtual sausage.
A virtual sausage, which is something, that's what she said. Which is probably a good time to now also say, gosh, I'm being a little bit off tonight with trying to enter everything at the same time. Patreon, which is probably a good time to also mention, if you're interested in being part of the team, coming on board and helping us do what we do, patreon.com/Big Hairy News. If you want to come and join us, there are 7 layers. Because even though the funniest thing of all was Elon took away his blue check mark $8 thing, because funnily enough, it didn't work, we've still kept ours. And as you can see, we put up videos and stuff there, especially videos early when we record them, and then we release them the next day or that evening on YouTube, but you can get them early, and you can come and be a part of the team at patreon.com/Big Hairy News. And if you do that, the next time we have a group get together, which I'm thinking, as I said, we'll probably do at the barbecue, that me and Chewy and George and Jason, who none of you have met Jason, but Jason is our technical guy who does a bunch of the things and fixes stuff up. So every time the audio craps out, I go, Jason, and he helps, and then it craps out again, which is not about him. It's about my system. It's a system issue. And we'll do that then. All right. I think we're done because it's Friday. Got to get down on Friday.
Oh, do you know what else it is today?
It's 1 month till Christmas.
It is White Ribbon Day.
Oh, for what's it called? Violence. Domestic violence.
So that is always very worthy cause. So I would suggest if you've got some spare coin, flick it their way. They do some good work. And things are getting better, but not nearly quick enough.
We spoke to one of the head guys from White Ribbon Day quite early on doing this show. So maybe I'll repost that on Facebook as well as a way of
that'd be cool.
As a way of kind of acknowledging that. I didn't know it was White Ribbon Day. Today, you're saying?
Yep.
whiteribbon.org.nz.
I must admit, it was brought up. Claire mentioned that it would be a good thing to talk about tonight. She just flicked me a message going, "You've just bulldozed all the way through it and haven't mentioned it." So thank you, Claire. Absolutely right.
Hi, Claire.
Pat is waving, Claire.
Well, she's obviously watching because she just said bulldozed all the way through it. So she's watching in the other room.
But yes, very, very, very worthwhile cause. And yeah, dudes have to do more to not be shit.
Thanks.
I think the main thing is, if you see it, do something about it. Like if it's your mate or you see it out and about, we all sort of go, "Oh, that's yucky. I don't want anything to do with it." But yeah, sometimes it's a shout of, "Oi, pull your head in."
Pull your head in.
Yep.
Give your hands to yourself. Yeah, no, very good. whiteribbon.org.nz if you want to go check them out. And like I said, I'll if I'm thinking I'm in my studio tomorrow morning, I might put up that interview on the Facebook page, which is scrolling along the bottom of the screen at the moment. All right, team. Lovely to be with you. Thanks for joining us. We will see you guys next Monday from 10 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy News. Have a safe weekend. Want to see you all back on Monday night, safe and sound. Until then, be safe. Hooroo. Goodbye.